Hello friends, Del here, and welcome to another Legion Beta video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Protection Paladin, their set bonuses for the raid that's going to be coming up. I believe you'll probably be getting it in Emerald Nightmare, not in, or I should say, you'll probably be getting it in Nighthold, not Emerald Nightmare, if they follow the Hymal BRF kind of thing that they did in WoD. I'm going to be talking about those legendary items that they have for the Protection Paladin, as well as just giving a brief little overview of what's it like, playing the Protection Paladin through the Broken Shore, doing the artifact quest, all that stuff. Again, I'm sorry that all these videos have been kind of delayed. I've been, really busy with everything that happened with the car accident, and then today I slept until 5, woke up, ate dinner, slept again at like 6, and then woke up at 12. So I'm a healthy individual who is going places. That's true. But anyways, guys, as far as a quick little update as to the spec, how it plays, and all of that, um, it's still kind of slow. I think that haste is going to be really, really necessary to get the most out of the spec. Everything goes by pretty slowly. It does have a rhythm to it. The talents do change things up considerably. I constantly feel myself missing Divine Protection though, which is in WoD you have like a 30-second cooldown, or it's a minute cooldown if you don't talent into it, but it reduces magical damage by either 40%, or if it's glyphed it's 40%, and if not it's 20% magic, 20% physical. I find myself missing that constantly, especially when I was leveling up. Getting the actual shield, I don't know if maybe I'm just a retard. I mean, that's always possible, but getting the shield, I died like 3 times against that fucking fight. It was a pain in the ass. Maybe they need to tune that slightly, but it doesn't. It also doesn't help that you can't switch talents unless you're in a rested area. You have that item. So I'm just gonna go ahead and start by saying fuck that change. Thank you, Blizzard, so much for giving us just more stress in our lives. It's fucking fantastic. But it really depends on the talents, how easy of a time you have. I mean, I still feel that this first tier is a little bit. I mean, it's good choices that you have to make. I'm still not sure if Hand of the Protector is going to scale with everything a Light of the Protector does. I'm not sure if maybe this is going to be decent or not. It really does come down to First Avenger being a single target choice because it's letting you reset Avenger Shield more often, but only hitting one target, and then Consecrated Hammer just letting you spam Hammer the Righteous, doing just AoE damage, things like that. I'm still not 100% on this tier because at least when you're playing by yourself, it I honestly think that all of these choices are kind of useless when you're by yourself. In group settings, of course, these choices are going to shine. Um, Blessed Hammer is an awkward thing to play with, but I feel like the 15% less damage that an enemy will do to you is kind of like super important because again, I felt myself needing just a little bit of extra protection. I was going Seraphim, and I'm still not entirely sure that Seraphim's going to be viable when you're trying to be defensive. The problem is that Shield of the Righteous just reduces all damage that you take by such a wide margin, increased by Consecrate, that I'm starting to feel like Seraphim probably is not going to be something that you can do defensively. It's not like in WoD where, technically speaking, being Seraphim, the boost to your bonus armor, the boost to all your stats and everything, it made up for the fact that you were giving up some holy power, so it was a defensive cooldown while you have it. It was great. I think Shield of Righteous is just too strong now that it overshadows Seraphim completely as far as defensive. Especially if you're doing your artifact quest, I would heavily recommend you go Righteous Protector. Just go ahead and let you know that Light of the Protector, when you're tanking something seriously, is doing a lot of damage to you because as you fight these two mobs, they're both assholes. I would suggest going that, but still, that choice exists, which is more than you can say about a lot of classes. They do have Avenging Wrath, which is giving them more damage, so at least Paladins can choose to do that. That's what's important, having the choice. But I still think that maybe Seraphim needs a bit of a buff if it's going to be competing at all with Shield of the Righteous, because the truth of the matter is 2 charges of your Shield of the Righteous, which is reducing all damage you take by 46% increased by Consecrate. That is a big deal. You can't knock it. That's a great thing. And some of the choices here is definitely very situational, very much going to be dependent on whether you're in a group setting or not. But enough about that. Paladins are still good. Rotationally, depending on the talent, actually, one more thing. Rotationally, depending on the talents, you kind of put yourself in a situation where you feel like you're spamming Blessed Hammer or Hammer the Righteous all the time, even if you don't have it have no cooldown, because it is a 2 charge, very quick, like 3-second recharge. The rotation and the gameplay feels a little stale, if I'm being super honest. It's not as bad as it used to be, especially since you are going to be tracking your Shield of Righteous charges. But it's not awful. It's not awful, I want to go ahead and say. But anyways, taking a look at the set bonuses now, which is why we're here. So, the Battle Plate of the High Lord. You want to go ahead and take a look at what it looks like. Very nice, very Paladin-y. I am a personal big fan of this set, especially the Mythic variation. I think it looks awesome. And the shield actually has a lot of very nice tints and different styles of it. I like, compared to the Protection Warrior, I really like the Protection Paladin artifact. I feel like they put a lot of work into it. Whereas the Warrior one, I think that maybe they skimped a little bit. I think maybe they need to give them more attention. They need to really emphasize how great protection or sword and shield should be. And I feel like maybe they lost that a little bit on the Warrior. They deserve more. But anyways, taking a look at the two set here, you have Avenger Shield increases the effect of Shield of the Righteous and Light of the Protector, and my mouse is moving for some reason. Avenger Shield increases the effect of Shield of the Righteous and Light of the Protector by an additional 10%. So, a problem with Avenger's Shield right now is that rotationally, defensively speaking, it provides you with nothing. It just hits some targets very hard for holy damage, and it interrupts. Hammer of the Righteous or Blessed Hammer gets increased for being in Consecration. Shield of the Righteous gets increased for being in Consecration. Light of the Protector gets increased for being in Consecration. So Consecration is something you want to have down all the time. It's giving you a tangible defensive boost. Avenger Shield does nothing for you, and you're supposed to be wanting to press it all the time. Grand Crusader procs, you're supposed to be prioritizing that as number one. And until you get artifact traits that boost Avenger Shield, until you get the traits that do, let's take a look here. It's until you get something like Tears Enforcer, which when you throw Avenger Shield, it's going to explode and hit all the enemies, but that doesn't actually do anything until you get Bulwark of Order. Avenger Shield also shields you for 8 seconds, absorbing as much damage as it dealt. And if we take a quick look here, let's see if anything else affects Avenger Shield. Let's see. Not as far as I can tell. Increase the damage by Avenger Shield. Yeah. So I mean, you can see here that until you get those really important artifact traits, Avenger Shield is doing shit all for your defensive benefit. It does nothing. It's just a button that lights up that's like, oh, press me, but there's no point in pressing it. So the fact that they're tying in the set bonus to it as well, I think is a good thing because they need more of a defensive benefit. You need more of a reason. There needs to be more synergy. Remember, Demon Hunters, everything they do feeds into each other. And you want that to happen with your abilities. You don't have one ability that's just usable because, fuck it, it's there. So having it increase the effect of Shield of the Righteous and Light of Protector is very good. It's a little bit strong for a 2-set bonus. I hope that doesn't mean that they're expecting Paladins to need that much of a bonus. But then the 4-set is Shield of the Righteous has a 35% chance to reset the cooldown Light of the Protector. So Light of the Protector is your big heal. It is the other side of your active mitigation. And just like World of Glory, it's just meant to heal you up after you take a big hit. It has a cooldown that's lowered by haste, and it heals you for 25% of the missing health that you have. So it's more viable to you when you're under 50% health to use it. And you always want to use it when you're in Consecration because it's going to increase the effect of it. So basically what you're going to be doing, especially if you take one of those talents that reduces the cooldown of Light of Protector every time you Shield the Righteous, you're going to be having it up a lot of the time. And having it also reset the cooldown is just a nice way of having a little safety net. I would say that the 2-set is a lot stronger. If you're constantly using Light of the Protector, I feel like that's just going to be bad gameplay if you're constantly having to spam that thing and keep yourself alive. But overall, it's 2 very powerful set bonuses. I think that's good for the Paladin overall. I especially like the fact that they are giving some more attention to Avenger Shield, requiring you to have all these artifact traits before it's even usable or even worth using. It does suck. And I like that at least they're giving some more attention to it with the set bonus. Now let's take a look at the legendaries. So we have the boots that increase your movement speed by 75% of your haste. As a paladin, as long as they keep stacking haste like they have traditionally, I think that'll be nice. It'll be useful. It's always useful to move faster. It's just not always useful to staying alive, but it's useful to deal with some encounter mechanics. If you have it, it's nice. You probably won't be, desperate to get this one though. Then we're going to go and take this neck. It's the neck that gives you a 25% shield for 30 seconds after not taking damage for 5 seconds. Nice when you're off tanking or when you're not currently tanking the boss, but not going to be super useful the entire time. You have the ring that gives you a 70% increased move speed and 50% haste every time you CC something. You really only have Hammer of Justice unless you're also doing the blinding effect, but usually you probably won't get this to proc too much. So this is another one that's like nice to have, but not a real big deal. If anything, you'll use it because it has higher eye level. Then you come to a chest piece. Now, each enemy hit by Avenger Shield reduces the remaining cooldown on Guardian of Ancient Kings by 4 seconds. Again, as we've already discussed, your big shield wall cooldowns are always pretty much um, scheduled. You know when you're going to use a certain cooldown. So reducing it is nice. Okay, don't get me wrong, it's nice, especially in an AoE scenario. You're going to be reducing that cooldown a lot because every time Avenger Heal is hitting 3 targets and hitting more targets is going to be reducing the cooldown. You know, even a base 3 is 12 seconds, so it's not a little bit, but it's not a big deal. Not as big deal as you might think. If you're just using your Guardian of the Ancient Kings whenever you need to, so just in panic situations, you're just using it constantly and not scheduling it, it'll probably be more useful to you. Overall, not a bad not a bad not set bonus, but not a bad legendary to have, but not game changing either. Then you have this ring. You take 4% less damage while standing in your consecration. You are always standing in your consecration. In fact, if you're not standing in your consecration, you have messed up at some point. Maybe you used it when you were in a period of movement. Maybe you had to move for a boss mechanic, but you want to be in your consecration all the time. So having this just means you take 4% less damage. Pretty necessary in my personal opinion. I easily see this as being you use this when you don't have an immediate need for anything else. But let's go ahead and take a look at the rest, and I can really figure out when you're going to want this on. So then you have these plate legs that Avenger Shield jumps to additional targets. Oh, okay. So in AoE scenarios, you're going to be wanting to put this on because that's going to mean it's going to jump to more targets, giving you more shielding, giving you more explosions, and just making your Avenger Shield be more worthwhile to use. So very clearly, an AoE type scenario, it competes a little bit with the breastplate because this is also very useful in an AoE scenario. But more of a defensive versus offensive. It's really going to come down to math whether the extra shielding that you get from the Avenger Shield, which I personally think is probably going to be better because of the resets. Again, Guardian of Ancient Kings, you're not necessarily using it all the time. It's for specific things. So having it up faster, be it that specific moment is still like a minute away, you're not going to want to risk using it and then just hoping that you proc Grand Crusader enough to get it reset. So I easily see this being more of an obvious AoE choice. Then you have a waste that makes casting a non-greater blessing, which is all of your standard blades. So greater blessings, I think, is only for Retribution Paladins, if I'm not incorrect. But casting a non-greater blessing heals the target for 15% of max health. What does this mean? Well, at its very basic level, it means that every 25 seconds you have a heal for 15% of max health on any target. That's yourself, your co-tank, your friendly raid members, anyone. It works on Blessing of Sacrifice, which is a tank cooldown, 3 minutes. It works on Blessing of Protection, 5 minutes is, that invulnerability shield. It'll work on your Blessing of Salvation, which, if we take a look here, is a 1 minute cooldown. It works on Blessing of Spell Warding, which is a 3 minute cooldown. All of your blessings. And the easiest one to do, honestly, is Blessing of Freedom. Blessing of Freedom has a 25-second cooldown. It just means you can use it whenever you need to. And in fact, if you're in a situation where you're, taking a lot of damage, you need a lot of defensives, Blessing of Freedom on yourself, you can throw on Blessing of Protection on yourself and cancel aura it to get the 15% heal and still retain threat. Pretty good, honestly. This is very much a utility thing. It's going to be dependent on the encounter because 15% max health heal is always good, but the absorb shielding is really, really good as well. So it's going to depend. It'll be whether you need more heals all the time or you just need to take less damage all the time. And then you have a wrist that increases the duration of Blessing of Freedom, Blessing of Sacrifice, and Blessing of Protection by 40%. So I see this one as being very situational. It's just going to depend on if you're using your blessings for specific situations. Blessing of Freedom is not super useful all the time in raiding. It'll be useful once or twice during a couple of fights, but it's not like a big deal. Blessing of Sacrifice, though, is, it's a tank cooldown. It's a big deal. But in this case, you'll be using it on a friendly tank or someone else. And I mean, blessing of protection again is nice because it'll increase the amount of damage that the amount of time that someone's going to be protected from melee attacks, similar to blessing of spell warding for spells. I can see very specific scenarios being useful for this, so I like this one for that reason. But all in all, I almost kind of feel like you're going to want to use this ring all the time, so you just take less damage, and then you'll either swap it out for the chest if you need to have lower cooldown on Guardian of Ancient Kings, or AoE tanking. You're going to do the leg so you can have it jump more times. This will probably just be dependent. These two, the wrist and the waist, probably are going to be entirely dependent on the fight. If for some reason having more heals every time you bless something is good for you, then you'll want to go ahead and pop this in. But I see the ring being useful for all scenarios, and then everything else kind of being whenever. Now, interesting to me is that out of all the tanks I've done so far, this is the first one where I kind of look and think, none of these are really overpowered. None of these are just, um, will break encounters at times. But that being said, I don't know all the fights. I don't know all the mechanics of the mythic versions. I don't know. I can't think of scenarios in my head where I can break things or make things a lot easier for my raid team using these items. I see this as being basically mandatory, but the rest of them, I can't think in my head right now of a good scenario to use them. And it's going to be very much dependent on when I actually start raiding, when I do the fights and the mechanics myself, to go ahead and figure out those best moments. Overall, I would say that maybe the Protection Paladin has the best set of legendaries in the sense that they don't feel as stupidly important and necessary, besides the ring, because taking 4% less damage all the time for no reason is just, you want that. But yeah, I mean overall Protection Paladin, I would say their rotation is still a little stale. It does feel like you don't really have much of a choice in how to switch it up, or there's not much gameplay depth besides your Shield of the Righteous charges. But that's okay. I mean, with haste, with gear, I think it's going to get a lot better. You do have a lot of defensives. You have a lot of ways of increasing your damage through talents. You have a lot of choices, which is always good to have. And it's important because as you go through the expansion, you want to be able to change things up. Once you start feeling comfortable, you start getting that gear. But anyways, guys, it is 5:45 in the motherfucking morning. Again, I'm sorry that all these videos have taken so long to come out. I've been busy, but I'm gonna be trying to get back on track and get all the rest of these out, as well as the monk. I think is the last one that I have to do out as soon as possible. But anyways, if you like this, go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more. I will be posting some Overwatch stuff because it just came out and I fucking love that game. It's fantastic. But I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and thank you for watching.